Hi, this is Tom. Welcome to my channel. This is an app here, which it's a web app that's on World War II, and it's driven by menus. And you can drill down when you get to a low enough level, it will display information, and then you can see this was the sequence. But World War II, major battles, Stalingrad. And then here we got the background strategic importance of Stalingrad. And then I could go deeper if I wanted to, or I can go back. So if I go back, this is still on Stalingrad, and there's different parts to the battle. And so this would be one way of studying the Battle of Stalingrad would be to just go through each of the points of the menu. Okay, so this is something I've been working on for a while, which I think is a neat app. And it's using AI to build all the content. And that is a cool thing about this that really has gotten me interested in trying to build web apps. This is called inference when you're using the AI within the app. And then there's also AI to actually build the app. And the main thing I wanted to talk about was not this app. At some other time, maybe I'd like to do a video, and you can see it's a work in progress, but the basic concept is working. And again, when I started, I put in World War II. I could put in any topic here possible. Like, for example, start over, I'll put in 1960s, and it will build out menu structure, music and bands, historical events, and so forth. Now, I've been interested in doing this sort of thing for years. Ever since ChatGPT 3 came out, I've been kind of waiting for it to get good enough to be able to do this. And I'd say it's been good enough for a while to do coding, but I mean, the longer you wait, the better it gets. And even it's still hard to do. It's takes a lot of work, but it's definitely doable and pretty amazing. And what I really wanted to share was the environment that I'm using, that sort of the way that I'm going about this, in case anyone else is interested in it. And something that I'll mention that is really like, I think this is a perfect time to get into this, is because not only like are the tools that the AI is using, better, but the cost has gone way, way down. Like with a couple of weeks ago, OpenAI released Nano 4.1, which is a model that's only API, and it costs like 10 cents for a million tokens. So I've been working on this app for a couple of weeks now, over a week anyway, and I've used I had to put in $5 to um, you set up an account that you can draw against as you're using the inference. So I'm using because you have the charges for the AI that you use when you pay your monthly program, and that's fixed at like $20 a month. But when you have the inference cost for like an app, then that's going to be depending on how much it's used, how many tokens are generated. So I had to put down a $5 deposit to use this, and I've been doing this for over a week now. So guess how much I've used? Well, the answer is 1 cent. That's last time I looked, and I don't think it's changed. I've used 1 cent of the to do this work that I'm doing. So that's gone way, way down in cost. And this is a very good model. It's ChatGPT 4.1. So the content is good. Now, it takes a time to load the very first time. I actually did this before I started the video. But once it's loaded, then you can see that, it works pretty fast. You saw how quickly that was. It actually built the content for that level of the menu. Now, once it's built it'll cache it. So if I go back, that should be very quick because that's cached in there. But as it's building the notes, it's actually grabbing the content. And you can see that it goes quite quickly. Anyway, what I really wanted to talk to you about was uh, how to go about this or how I'm doing it, because there's quite a lot of ways of doing it. And uh, to give a little background, I just had ChatGPT for a long time. And then I started to decide to try to program, and I was using ChatGPT, and it was quite error prone. So I got frustrated and decided to try Claude. And I heard that Sonnet 2.7 was really good at coding, so I got Claude, and Claude has projects that are really nice. So this is a project called the AI Explorer, and it's doing an app that's very similar to what I just showed you. And you can see it stores all the chats that you've had and has a thing called project knowledge that you can store information. And this is the basic way that I was going about doing the development. I would give it a project overview. Unfortunately, this isn't set up that well for you to see how it's organized, but it has like project content on how the project works. And then I've got these session summaries that I'll ask the AI to summarize what we did in a session. And so when I start a new session, then it can see all of this, and then I'll have a goal for the new session. Okay, so that's a basic concept, but I got frustrated with Claude because the usage limits is quite the usage is quite limited. So I would just get started in a session, and then it would hit me with a message saying long chats use up your usage quicker. It wants me to start a new session. And even starting a new session, I would run into usage limit problems. So, and wants to bump me up to, paying $100 a month, which I didn't want to do. But that would be a viable option. This would definitely work. It's good enough to use. But I decided instead to switch to Gemini. And so what I did with Gemini, this is what I'm going to show. I use Blogger to track the information that I want, and I'll give a really good example here. I'm going to go to a different blog here. I'm going to go to uh, one called Hello World, developing Hello World template. Okay, so this was a project for so it's pretty descriptive. I wanted to try a certain combination of technology to develop a Hello World template. So I used Gemini to write up these documents, and it's basically going through steps to create the template artifacts, an explanation. It's explaining all the technologies used, and it's got the main components. So this one is very basic. So it just has, I think it only has one component, and then one main one, which is this app.tsx, and then it has some smaller ones. So the idea is that in my blog, I have a blog that's dedicated just to that I'm just using myself to organize all the information. And when I start the session, then I would give the AI the information that it needs to do that session. So I'm going to go to another blog, and I'll show an example of that. So that's uh, let's see, I can't remember what I called it. Let's see it here. All right, well, this one will work. I'll use this one. All right. So for what we're going to do is I have intro to a new session. So intro to a new session, it just says, hi Gemini, I started a new development session for this project, and I will now provide you the project context documents. So there's a workflow. It calls it a charter. I would call it a design document, but it had it. A charter, that's a good word for it because it's got other stuff in it too. The project concept. So the project concept is what I wanted to do was use the same concept as Claude with the way it has a project, but do it in a chat session because Gemini has a large enough uh, context window that you can use a chat session as if it were a cloud project. It's actually a cloud project can only do, last time I checked, 200,000 tokens, I think. And Gemini can do 1 million. So you can use a chat session in Gemini to emulate uh, a project in Cloud. And I apologize if things change so fast in AI that by the time you're hearing this or I'm saying this, it could be out of date. But anyway, the point is Gemini is an enormous context window for a chat session. So the project concept, I'm just telling it, I want it to set it up like a project. I'm going to give it all the documents it needs, and then I give it the main components for the app. And I didn't give it all of them because it can infer what most of them are, doesn't need them, but I gave them the main ones that have the bulk of the logic in it to work with. So I think this is pretty much what I wanted to share. Um, and no, there was one other really important thing that I wanted to share. Okay, let me go over this again. So just real quick. So I'll set up a new session, and this will work. I've actually started doing this with O3, which in my opinion is the best model for coding right now, but they're all good. And I'm using the same setup, which is at the beginning of a session, I'll give it, the documents that it needs. So see, here's the project charter. So I'll show what that looks like real quick. So this is quite short. So it's basically just describing the vision and goals of the project and the technology used and key features. Okay, then we've got the workflow, development session workflow, and this is describing um, how the session will work. And then I've got a more meaty document, this design document. And then this is showing the architecture of the document, the technology stack, the folder structure, interfaces, and so forth. It's a really nice document. And of course, the AI does it all, does everything really, really well. And a neat thing about AI is like, if you don't know how to do this, uh, it doesn't matter. It knows how to do it. So from watching the video, you can get the basic concepts of the idea of how to design a session. And you can just ask it basically, if I'm doing an application, what are the sorts of documents that I would want to have for it, and like a design document and so forth, and it'll tell you what you need, and it'll create all the documents for you. Give it to it at the beginning of the session, and then also a key thing that I found really useful is a summary for a new session. So the summary for the new session is it will say what the status is of the application, so how far along you are, and it will summarize what was done in the last session, and then also I'll have it set the goals for the new session. And then something I wanted to mention was I found really useful is to try to limit a session to an hour. Um, and that would be, I mean, a lot of times it takes a lot longer than an hour because that's life. Things come up, and that it doesn't go perfectly. That's normal. It's unnormal that unnormal. It's not normal that you, a session I plan to take an hour actually takes an hour, and everything just goes flawless. But it can happen. Sometimes it takes less than an hour. But I'll ask it like, what do you think we can do in an hour? And that's the goal for that session. And then have and in each session try to do one thing, one unit of work, one specific. Like for example, on the app that I showed, a session might be um, to get this uh, go back functionality to work. Could be one session, or get the main menu functionality where this goes back to the beginning. Something like that would be one session. And possibly that's too much for a session, but the AI is pretty good at estimating how long things should take. So the idea is 1 hour. Okay, and now I think I've said enough about how to set up the environment with the AI. Now I'll show what I'm using to actually do the app. There's a lot of different ways of doing this. So I'm not going to go into all the possibilities, and I'm not going to say the way I'm doing it is the best way because I'm sure it's not, but it's one that's working very well for what I'm wanting to do. So I'm using two main technologies. One is GitHub, and GitHub is a repository, um, and actually, it's not the right thing to call it, but it's a source management tool. That's a better way of calling it. That it creates and manages repositories. And if you don't know what that is, just ask the AI. But the basic idea is you want a way that you can save your work and have access to it. So, not lose it, not accidentally delete something, all that sort of thing. To know where you are. There's anyone that's done development will be familiar with this, I'm sure. But if you have any questions about it, just ask AI. But the main thing here is I'm just using GitHub, and I'm not doing anything locally. Um, so this slightly unusual way of development. It would be more usual to be using my local computer and do things in local development. Um, but I'm actually doing everything in GitHub. So, and I think this works well because the apps I have aren't that big, and it's only me. So I'm kind of cutting some steps here, but I only have two things that I need. So one is GitHub, and GitHub is free. You set up an account; it's very easy to do. And the other thing I'm using is Render, and Render is also free. And Render is wants me to. Okay, I guess I can sign in since I guess you can see how easy this is to do. I'm just using Google to sign in. All right. And Render works with GitHub, and Render is responsible for rendering. Yeah, it's responsible for building and deploying the app, and GitHub is responsible for storing all of the code that you're writing. And this is it's very easy to use, but confusing, I would say. I mean, it takes a while to get used to, like, just how to move around it. Um, but once you get used to it, it's easy to use. And to do a deploy, I can just click here. I'll deploy latest commit. It's very fast. Um, so you can see here it'll, it says it was built in 1.22 seconds. and it has does it show another timer, 3 seconds. So there's some latency for it to like start, but not much. And so it tells you it's 3 seconds to do this part, and it was doing all of this stuff. And so the whole thing to do the build is well less than a minute most of the time. I mean, there can be hiccups, but it's very, very fast to build the app. And then it says your site is live if everything goes well. If it doesn't go well, there's logs and stuff you can use with the AI to debug it. It'll tell you what you need to do. And to use it, I just click. So when I click here, it'll bring up this. And uh, a reason that I like this is that that it gives you immediately a working app. So it's deploying to the web. Uh, Now, if you don't want people to actually use it yet, there's ways you can avoid that. But I think it's pretty neat that immediately you have a working app that that people can use. And another thing I was going to mention that I found really useful for debugging, and this is something that the AI won't tell you to do, but I use it all the time. I find it really, really useful, and that is if something goes wrong, just take a screenshot. So you can do in Windows window key print screen, take a screenshot and just show it the screenshot. Show the AI the screenshot, and that's a very quick way where it can see all the information, and you don't have to try to describe to it what it's doing, but it can just see it all at once. And the other thing you can do is if there is error, um, there would be like a trace of what's going on. Just grab it with your mouse, copy paste it, give it to the AI, and a lot of times they won't ask for that either. I'm not sure why, because sometimes it does. It'll ask for logs and stuff, but it never asks for the screenshot. But that's really useful, and I think that's pretty much what I wanted to share. Um, that how you can go about setting up a nice environment. But I'll emphasize again what I like about using GitHub and Render is that I have, first of all, it's free, and then it's very robust, and it's very quick, and I'm doing everything remotely, nothing on my own computer. There's pluses and minuses for doing it both ways, but it's very quick for me to develop. I'm not getting hung up um, with a lot of in between steps. So that's what I like about it. So um, that's what I wanted to share, and I hope that's useful for you. Thanks for watching, and until next time.